And welcome back, folks. Professor Almeida, jpalmeida.com, here to talk to you today about using NETLAB. How to log into NETLAB, schedule a reservation, spin up a pod, work through the material along with your lab assignments. So we're going to get into all of that. If you need to pause this video at any time, feel free to do so, and I'll be right here waiting. So let's just get right to it. We'll talk about this lab handout later. So here's NETLAB. You can get to it by visiting cos-netlab.lbcc.edu. And if you are in a class that is using NETLAB, in this case COSN10, there will be a link waiting for you here, and it will take you straight to this landing page. Now, you're going to get your own username and password. This will be provided to you in class, and that password is, wait for it, password, with a capital P, at, and a 0. This is actually the same format that you will see in NETLAB. I know it's not exactly super secure, but when you log in the first time, you're going to have to change it anyway. Pick a password you can remember. If you forget it, it's kind of a pain to have to go back and reset that password. So choose something you can remember. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in here. Okay. And you'll see that I already have things scheduled, and I'm leaving these up right now for the sake of demonstration. Okay, chances are this is going to be an empty page, and you're going to need to schedule a lab for yourself. And we do that by coming up to schedule a lab for myself. Okay, hopefully you will see your class in here, and depending on what you're enrolled in, maybe you are in multiple classes using NETLAB, you should see those classes up here. I'm going to choose COSN10, okay, and there are a number of different labs, and it's pretty much the same idea. You click on the button and you schedule the lab. So I'm going to choose Lab 1, OSI model. We'll go ahead and schedule the lab, and now we see a number of different pods, and you'll see that there are reservations already in place. That means this pod is taken up. So we're going to find a pod that isn't already reserved. Okay, we'll choose this one here. Get as close to the red line as possible. Don't just come down here, otherwise, well, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Get as close to the red line as possible, and then schedule your reservation. Now, you should give yourself at least 4 hours. Okay, let's make it 4 hours here. No, there we go. Why 4 hours anyway? Well, if you learn nothing else from this video, computer work is always going to take longer than you think it will. Okay, especially in class, you're trying to work through the lab, and then something comes up, or maybe class is over. By giving yourself 4 hours, you can get home, you can log on to your PC, and you can pick up where you left off. Okay, so give yourself at least 4 hours when doing any of these NETLAB assignments. Okay, so again, 4 hours, don't forget that. Let's go ahead and choose Submit, and you'll see reservation 15713 is scheduled. So let's find 15713, and let's actually enter the lab. Now, this pod is going to spin up. It's going to take a while. So while it's doing that, I want to talk about the actual lab assignment. So we're here in COSN10, and you'll see any assignments involving NETLAB, well, it's going to say NETLAB. This is where you actually turn in the assignment, but everything you need to know is on a page like this, Models and Topology. Let me show you. Okay, here are the lab files you will need for this module. Let's focus on NETLAB. You download this file, or you can preview it, but you want to download this file. It's a Word document. Okay, so I have it right here, and I have it open in Word. The very first thing you need to do is to type out your name, okay, your actual name. You know, cue that I state your name joke. So type out your name, the date you're submitting it. The course in this case is COSN10, but again, it depends on your class. The assignment, I'm just copying over Lab 1 OSI model. It's not a big deal. Course section is important because I might be teaching multiple COSN10s. In this case, I might be teaching classes where they use the same lab. So by putting down the section number, it makes things a whole lot easier when it comes time to grade. If you don't know what your section number is, check Canvas or your class schedule. Now, here's something you don't want to do. Okay, don't make the mistake of doing this. right? Don't do this. Oh, too long, didn't read, TLDR. Ah, okay, here's where I need to be, right? There's the first box I need to fill out. Don't do that, okay? Don't come to class and jump straight into lab without knowing what's going on. As an IT professional, okay, if you haven't done so already, as an IT professional, you should develop an understanding of and have an appreciation for the importance of documentation, okay? Both reading and writing documentation. In these NetLab assignments, you're going to be documenting as you go along. You're going to answer questions, you're going to paste screenshots, you're going to also hopefully document what's happening, and if something goes wrong, you document what you did, okay? This is crucial, especially in IT. If you're a technician and you're trying to resolve some issue, you're documenting all the steps that you're taking, and then let's say you finally resolve that issue, you write down what you did so that the next tech who comes along can see what you did, and then that takes care of the issue. This is also the same thing if, let's say, you're a Linux user and then something happens with your system, and then you go searching on Google, hopefully finding someone else who had the same issue and what they did to resolve it, okay? That's why documentation is important, but also you want to take the time to read to see what's going on, and by not reading, you're going to miss something important. You're going to miss why we're even doing this in the first place. So let me show you here what you would have missed, okay? First of all, you would have missed the contents of what's being covered. The introduction, we're using Wireshark. We're learning about the different OSI model layers. Oh, hey, look at this, key terms, right? This is an alphabet soup of acronyms. You're going to be seeing this in networking, in cybersecurity. You want to make sure that you're able to define these terms in your own words. And as you're going to see in a moment, let the lab manual help you. It's going to drop hints, okay? The topology. In this particular lab, we have a Windows 2008 server on the outside that's acting as a web server, right? We have a Linux firewall, and usually this is the same topology for all these labs. And the Linux firewall allows us to see what the effects are. We can play around with the firewall and see what that does with network traffic, okay? It's kind of like what you use at home with your wireless router. If you want to assign a block of IP addresses that can only do certain things, right? You can play around with that in this virtualized environment and see what effect it has on the network traffic. Now, here's the internal network. We have 3 boxes here. We have 2 Windows 2008 boxes, and then we have this Backtrack 5. This is a Linux box, and if you've ever used Kali Linux, it's pretty similar. It has a couple of tools installed, but that's basically the topology. Now over here, you see more important information, such as how to log in and which box we're using. Okay, in this case, we're using the internal 2 box to log in, and we're going to be working with a Wireshark capture file. Okay, so you would have missed all of this if you didn't read it. Now, I understand there's a lot to go through, right? A lot of lecture material, videos like this one you're watching, a lot of reading, but you want to make sure that you read up on what you're doing in lab. That way you get to class and you're all set and ready to go. Especially in this case with COSN 10, we might not have a whole lot of time together, and with some classes, we meet only 1 night a week, right? So you want to get in, know what's going on, get through the lab, and then be on your way. All right, so let's see if that pod is ready to go. I've talked long enough, and again, if you need to hit that pause button, feel free to do so. All right, so here's our reservation. There's that topology I was talking about. Now you're going to notice this weird naming convention. Don't ask me why they call it W2K8R2 internal 1, internal 2. I know it can be really confusing, but the nice thing about this topology map is that you can click directly on the box you want to access. Okay, so here's our internal 2 box, right? Here's internal 1. There's that Backtrack 5 Linux box. Here's the web server on the outside. There's our Linux firewall. So you can see you can access all of them. And don't be afraid to mess around with this, okay? This is a virtualized environment, right? You can always schedule another reservation if things go bad, but I do ask that you be mindful of your fellow peers, right? And I'm sure that there's probably going to be a networking class going on, so I'm going to get out of those reservations that I had open, you know, as a courtesy. So don't have so many reservations open either. You only need one. You see that we still have 4 hours, 18 minutes remaining, okay? Let me show you a couple of other things. Content. Oh, hey, look at this. A PDF copy of the lab manual. You can download this, by the way. And if you scroll down through the lab manual, hey, look at this. Key terms. Don't just copy the key terms, though, okay? I want you to use your own words. Again, the reason for this is because with networking and with cybersecurity, there's a whole alphabet soup of acronyms. And if you can write it down in your own words, it will help you to remember them better, and you'll be a lot more successful, not just with the labs, but also with your certification exams. So do write those down in your own words, but also as you're working your way through the lab manual, some of the questions you'll need to answer are already, the answers are already provided to you in the lab, okay? So let the lab manual help you out. All right, one last thing, the status, you can see that they're all turned on. Okay, so here's our internal toolbox. How do we log in? So let's press Control-Alt-Delete, but we can't use our keyboard here. Fortunately, we have a drop-down menu. Okay, send Control-Alt-Delete. Again, if you read the documentation, you know what the password is to get in. All right, now we can also undock this if we want to put this on its own, in its own window, and I can resize this window as necessary, right? See that? I can do that. Let me go ahead and dock this back. So here we are. I'll go ahead and minimize this. And let's go ahead and open up this capture file. Now, you don't need to be an expert in Wireshark. So here's Wireshark. What is Wireshark anyway? Wireshark is a packet sniffer or a protocol analyzer. It's software that just basically monitors the network traffic and logs what's going on, okay? So this is what a typical capture file looks like. You can download Wireshark for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and you can start your own capture session, whether it's using a wired Ethernet connection or on Wi-Fi. And sometimes it's going to capture not just what's coming from your box and going to it, but also the network traffic from other boxes, right? That's what's called promiscuous mode, by the way. So you can capture traffic not just from your own IP address and where it's going, but you can also see other nodes on the network as well. So let me show you real quick. So this is the number in order that the packets were captured. So this is the first packet, the second packet, the third packet, and so forth. And the time. You can see it's elapsed from the first capture here. This is the source IP address, where it's coming from. And if you need to check what the IP addresses are, again, look back at the topology here. Okay, so you see that the internal network is 192.168.12.0, and then you see what are the assignments are. So in this case, 192.168.12.10, and so forth. So you can see the source IP addresses. Okay, so this is just a sample capture, by the way. So you see the source IP address. This is where the packet is coming from. This is the destination of where it's going. This is the protocol. The length of the packet. You'll see that the length differs depending on the protocol. Okay, and as you're going through the lab, you'll see why some packets are longer than others. Okay, especially with, let's say, TCP versus UDP. What do TCP packets typically have that UDP doesn't, right? And then some information about the packet itself. Okay, so that's a little intro into Wireshark. And again, read through the documentation so you understand what's going on. And speaking of documentation, if you want to learn more about Wireshark, there's a lot of good documentation out there, especially from the Wireshark project itself. Okay, so let's say I'm all done with my lab here. How do I end this reservation? So when I'm done, I just come up to reservation, I end this reservation. Okay, the reservation has ended, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and end these reservations as well, all right? Because there might be another class going on right now, and I want to make sure these pods are available to them. All right, so let's go ahead and end all these reservations. And when you're done, you can go ahead and log out. Okay, so go ahead, we're going to choose log out. All right. Again, if you need to hit that pause button, please feel free to do so. And the very last thing I want to show you is how to turn in your NetLab assignment. And I need to get out of God mode here and go into student view. So let's say that we are working on lab 1 and I need to turn in that assignment. So how do I do it? I'm going to come down into Canvas. Here is lab 1, the OSI model, and I'm going to submit the assignment. You can see the rubric here. This is how I'm going to grade. It's a 10-point lab, and if you thoughtfully went through, you answered the key terms, you didn't really leave anything blank, right? You pasted the screenshots, which, by the way, you want to double check, make sure your screenshots are readable before you turn it in, right? If everything's there and it's good, it's an easy 10 points. Now, 6 points if you start leaving things blank, if it's apparent that you didn't give your best, right? You want to make sure that you bring your A game to this, right? Put your 100% into these labs. This is your hands-on experience in this class. And obviously, if you didn't do anything, well, you get nothing. So, submit assignment, choose file, and in this case, it's in my downloads folder. Here's my lab assignment, and then I can go ahead and submit it. Now, what if I mess something up, right? What if I mess something up? What if it turns out something went wrong with my screenshots, or I forgot to answer something or whatnot? I can always resubmit. You see, now it's become resubmit assignment. Okay, I can keep doing this right up until the due date. Okay, so if you forgot something and you need to resubmit, you can always resubmit it. But if the due date comes and goes, I'm only going to consider the most recent submission. All right, so that's how you turn in a NetLab assignment. That's how you work with NetLab. I hope this video makes some sense. Good luck on NetLab, and thank you for watching.